Hello, friends. Welcome to this week podcast and episode. And I remain your host, your mentor, your coach, and mind surgeon. And my name is Dr. Julius Aroba. I hope you're actually doing wonderfully well. In this particular podcast and masterclass, I want to talk about investments, debts, and consumer debts. When you look at these two key words, they are very sensitive because debt is anything that you owe to somebody that you can actually be able to exchange over time, or you can be able to pay, or you have some arrangements in different areas. But do you know that so many people that are wealthy today are actually using wealth to be able to build their businesses and their portfolios? So now, ladies and gentlemen, debt is one of the most important things that's understood by a lot of people, and it is one of the financial tools that people use. And some people use debt and become wealthy, and others use debt and they become trapped for decay. Because when they borrow, at the end of the day, they borrow and they lost over the time. A lot of people actually use debt in their own advantage, and some people use it in terms of consumptions. And some people use debt and become wealthy. That's why you see there's nobody who's actually wealthy today that does not make use of debt. Debt comes in form of consumer, and debt comes in form of investment for some people and some persons. Maybe you are somebody that have not thought about when you are using debt and when you're actually seeing how you can be able to put those things in place. Debt is one of those things that you can use. There's nobody that build a business today that does not use debt. I know you are scared of using debt. Now, you don't want to use debt to be able to borrow and spend. You want to use debt to be able to invest in anything that you do, because debt has actually built a skyscraper in some people's mindsets. And when you look at it, a lot of multi-billionaires companies today are actually owing debt, but they're using the debt to be able to finance their businesses, to finance their assets, to finance anything that they do. And debt has destroyed a lot of families, businesses, and nations because people do not know how to control debt. Some people borrow debt and they use it as a form of consumer. And that is why it's very good for you to know the difference in debt. And there is also for you, it's good for you to know what is behind the debt and what is the purpose of debt. As Robert Kiyosaki once said, that debt is money. He said if you use debt, you use debt to buy assets, because truly the money that you have today is debt. When you think about the assets, the cash in your account, it's a debt from one place to the other. It's only moving from one location to the other. And you are going to be very rich if you know how to be able to use debt and be able to control what you do in terms of asset translations or building your businesses. If you use debt to buy liabilities, you are going to be very poor in life. Because you don't use debt. You don't use credit card to buy food, to buy clothing, to buy maybe cars, because they might not be, maybe for consumption assets. But you want to be able to use it for something that is generating business for you. And you want to be able to see how you can be able to look at this debt in different forms, where you'll be able to look at, okay, now, let's now see. There is consumer debt, there is investment debt, and how do we be able to translate both of them? Number one is that understanding debt as a leverage is one thing you've got to use. Debt is borrowed capital that must be repaid with interest. Because there's no way you borrow money or you borrow credit card or anything, you pay it with interest. But you can use it as a capital in being able to develop your business. But financially speaking, debt is a leverage, because it's not everybody that have access to debt, to credit card, to credit facilities, to be able to improve their businesses. If you use debt wisely, you'll be able to multiply your assets in anything that you do. And if you use it carelessly, it will multiply your losses. And that's why a lot of people today, they're very broke, because debt has multiplied their losses. But when you use debt consciously, if you use it in terms of assets, you can be able to get what I call debt multiplicity of wealth. Debt can actually be in terms of loss or in terms of profit. It depends on how you use it. Warren Buffett once said that when you combine ignorance and leverage, you get some pretty interesting results. And that is what leverage without financial intelligence is dangerous. Because a lot of people, you just want to borrow, you just want to get credit facility, but you don't know how to be able to use those credit facility for something that can better your investment, to better your portfolio. But now it's only for consumption. That's what you want to avoid in this day and age. Part two, what does debt mean in terms of consumer? Now, consumer debt is borrowed money used to buy. You use it to buy lifestyle, you use it to buy comfort, you use it to buy status, you use it to buy immediate gratification, showing off. oh, I've got this money now. I want to just take the car just to show up that they know I've arrived. You went to go and borrow money for a Ferrari, whereas you don't even have a house as an investment. Do you think that is what I call selfish borrowing? Because who are you trying to impress? You want to impress your network, your friends and families who are not going to be there when you're going to be eating the pillow by yourself, or when you're going to be thinking about how to repay them. Imagine if you lost that job, how are you going to be able to pay for that Ferrari or for that Porsche or what that you've gone to borrow? Because it's for a consumer, it's not producing businesses for you. It's not producing profit for you. It's not the proper way. So friends and family, when you understand this, you want to be able to know how to leverage. How do we understand debt as a leverage? That is one thing I want to teach you today. Remember, the topic we're talking about is consumer debt and investment debt. Now, when we talk about leverage, how to understand debt as a leverage. Debt is borrowed capital that must be repaid with interest. Anywhere you borrow credit card, you borrow credit facility, you have to pay it with interest. But financially speaking, I want you to know that debt is also a leverage, because not everybody have access to those loans, those credit facilities that you are having access to. But if you're able to have that leverage, you can be able to know how to use it wisely, to multiply, to see how you can be able to become more better in anything you do. Instead of you using it as a credit card debt, or you're using it as a personal car loan, and that is not producing money for you. Or you will look at payday loan. You would not borrow credit to be able to pay back, or you would not borrow credit card to be able to pay back at the end of the month, because you want to satisfy your curiosity of spending. But that is not how it's meant to be. And you've got to know how to do. Some people borrow credits to be able to facilitate their vacations. Don't you think that is unwise? And some people use it to buy electronic gadgets. I want to buy the latest phones. I want to buy the latest laptops. But it's not something that's producing for your personal self. You just want to use it for yourself, for people to know that you use latest gadgets, electronics, Samsung, refrigerators, and so on and so forth. But friends, learn how to use this in different areas. So, the thing I want to tell you today is that negative wealth will always create a negative creation. And debt itself is so dumb. Just like the way we say cash is king. Cash is king. One extreme of it is that, meaning highlight, is that consumer debt often finances lifestyle, not wealth. When you consume that debt, you're using it for lifestyles, not improving your personal self, your educations, investing it into your businesses that can produce money, but you're only using it as consumer. It's not going to go there. It's not going to be long for you. And in developed economies, there is a lot of, globally, trillions of dollars sits in high interest credit card balances. Because when you look at it, I know some persons, they borrow from this, they get this credit card, they pay this credit card. Before you know it, they have more than 13, 14 credit cards. They wallow in debt. But how long are you going to start that? Let's say you borrow those credits, you are able to invest it into businesses. That can actually help you to become more better for future and for life. And wealth is what you accumulate over time, not what you spend. And consumer debt funds spending, where wealth requires accumulation. Wealth is built over time. Consumer debt always require you spending every time. So, investment debt. What is investment debt? Investment debt is borrowed capital used to acquire either income-producing assets or appreciating assets or businesses or cash flow in real estate. And it is very strategic if you are able to take calculated risk to be able to use those kind of debts to be able to facilitate these categories that I've mentioned. Example, real estate leverage. Let's say Sam actually built a fortune by buying undervalued properties using leverage, which is by debt, and he borrowed to acquire those assets and increase the property value by renovating, by making sure the property becomes top-notch to that level. And at the end of the day, do you know that Sam will not sell that property at the purchasing value? Over 6 months or 1 year, that property will never remain the same because it has increased over values, it has been put in the right order, and Sam might actually get about 40% or 30% of that property because he's been able to put the property in the right form. So friends, you've got to know how to see how to sell strategically, because corporate wealth creations, just like the way Elon Musk scaled, in the United States, companies like Tesla using structured capital and including debt and investors' financing to be able to finance what he built. And he built these factories and infrastructure, and he borrowed capitals by manufacturing plants. And he used it to also build technology innovation and enterprise values. And those things were actually funded by debt. And today, he's one of the richest men on earth. You can imagine that. That is a wise debt. And that is what I call investment debt. But you borrow that loan. You use it to buy clothes. You want to satisfy your friends and family. You want to be able to make sure your families are okay. You use it to buy a car because you want to show off to people in terms of luxury. That is not a wise decision. But now, I believe you've been able to know what the difference of wealth strategy in terms of building that. So, how do we differentiate consumer debt against investment debt? Consumer debt is in terms of funding lifestyle, but in terms of wealth, it funds assets. And in terms of net worth over time. But in terms of investment debt, it helps you to increase your net worth over time. And when we're looking at about consumer debt, it's actually compound negatively because it's for consumptions. But if you're able to look at that in terms of investment debt, it's going to help you to compound positively because your asset is improving sporadically. Your businesses are improving sporadically. They're not actually at one point where you'll be thinking of how to repay because businesses are paying over that over time. Now, when you buy a car or you buy food, those are not going to be able to help you to scale over time. And this is why you've got to know. And most times, a lot of people are driven by what I call emotional driven by consumer debt because they just want to borrow to show off, which is not the best. And now, the strategy that you've got to look in place is for you to know how to be able to put some of these things in place. And now, friends and family, because of time, I want to tell you that debt is not evil. Take it away from your mind. And debt is not wealth. And debt is not leverage. Consumer debt finance your present, not your future. Investment debt will build your future. And the question here for me to you today on this podcast is, should you use your debt in either consumer or for investments? Is this debt going to create assets or funding a lifestyle for you? Wealth is built when debt works for you, not when you work for the debt. You don't want to borrow to fund your lifestyle. But do something from today by reviewing, share this video, share this podcast, invite your friends and family, let them listen to this. And if you are not following us on our various platforms, Julius Aroba is the name, Julius Aroba. On different platforms, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on Spotify, on Apple, you can actually share this with love and let people know that there is a difference between consumer debt and investment debt. And lastly, have you been able to go through www.juliusaroba.com to be able to book us for your training as a coach, as a mentor, to be able to train you, your team, and your staff and your network? Remember, every debt that is not used wisely into an asset producing is a consumer debt. I hope you've actually been able to learn something today, and I can't see you again in our next masterclass and episode. God bless you and stay blessed. And I remain your host again. My name is Dr. Julius Aroba.